Very good morning to you. You are watching Newsline this morning. I am Chathuranga, Hapuarahchchi. Today we are going to, or rather this whole week, for the first 3 days of the week, we are going to focus our attention on one particular topic that needs the attention of the people and the authorities, the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement that was signed earlier this year. Now, I'm going to talk to Mr. Kapila Perera, the Secretary of Professionals National Front, a person who has been in the IT industry for over 15 years, but he is also an engineer by profession. So, we are going to talk to Mr. Perera about a specific point in the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. Good morning to you, Mr. Perera, and thank you for being here. Mr. Perera, I'll get to the topic straight away without delaying the time. First of all, when we say there is a free trade agreement in our country, be it with India, be it with another country, first thing that happens for sure is that some professional movement, including the GMOA, will come forward and say, no, this is wrong. Why is that happening?
Actually, this is not because of the goods part of these agreements. Actually, the services are there. And then you have to be a bit careful when you are working with this service sector, because you should know that who is coming in. And because it's not only about just about having an agreement on tariffs. Yeah. Not like that. So that is the major issue, and that is the concern that drives these professionals. So, but the thing is that it's not only about the professionals. If we bring in wrong people, in a way that will be detrimental to the industry. But on the other hand, it's bad for the country as well, because if we are bringing in the cultures that not belong here and not going to mix up with the other people. Even Singapore is looking at that now at the moment, because previously they were open for PR without any restriction, and in about 2008 or 9, until up to that point they were giving PR for around 70,000 people per year. But now they have reduced it. Now it's only about 30,000 per year. Right. So that's their stance.
Mr. Perera, now the point that we are trying to make, or make the people, our viewers, understand, is that when you speak about a free trade agreement, there are 4 modes that everyone is speaking about. One is to say that if I am living in Sri Lanka, let's take this particular example, Singapore, I can consult, if I am a lawyer, I can provide legal advice to a person living in Singapore while me being here in Sri Lanka and obtain a fee. Yeah. Second situation would be, I travel to Singapore, talk to that person and give the legal advice, obtain a fee and come back to Sri Lanka. Yes. Third option would be corporate presence, where a company by Sri Lanka is set up in Singapore and I work for that company. Fourth option would be, I move to Singapore, I live in Singapore and carry out my job and earn a salary there. Those are the 4 situations that we're talking about. But if you look at this particular Sri Lanka-Singapore Free Trade Agreement, it stops from mode 3. But you say that there is an issue. What is this issue?
The thing is that, yes, in the presence of a business, if we consider the commercial presence, that's right, that it stops at mode 3. So that a company will come here from Singapore, if you are considering that side, that Singapore will come here as a company and give their service. Yeah. But when they are giving that service, it is open for everyone to come through that company. That means that anyone who has a work permit to work in Singapore will join that company and come here. Yeah. Or maybe it's not necessary to have that work permit as well, because if we are providing that 5-year period visa, then they can come here. So it doesn't matter that whether it's a PR holder in Singapore or a citizen of Singapore. It's only a matter of having this national treatment on the service provider level, not from the employee level. So employee could be from anywhere. So that's the thing, that's why we are saying that even though we are opening up to mode 3, natural persons will move from different countries. Actually, now we can consider that we have opened a back door, or not a back door, but actually a front door to the world, to come into Sri Lanka. So
But why is that so bad? Now, let's take for example the medical sector. The GMOA is also heavily talking about this issue. But we know for a fact that a doctor can't come and work here from another country because you have to go through the exams.
It's not fully true, as I know, because for general practitioner it's true, but for the specialist it's different. So, but I don't think that GMO is coming front to discuss on this because of that. But what I believe is that they are coming to talk on this. Especially this is a national issue.
Yeah.
Whether it's a doctor or engineer or an architect or whether a laborer or whatever, that they will face this issue, because there are several factors that we need to consider. Only not about coming people from there to here, but we are losing our jobs. That's in a professional level. Or then as a mother or father, that my child will not have a opportunity in this country. So then why I should teach them? And then the next thing is that most of our low income community get a hold of this society and came up as a person because of the education, and after the education that you and me, I think we all get these jobs, and all these entertainment comes through the education. We haven't had money when we are small, when we are small. So that opportunity is not there. And what is the option for them? So we need to think about these things. And the other thing is, some countries, not Singapore, but India, China, they are trying to have a hold with us by having these agreements as a political, geopolitical pressure. So there are many other things to consider. It's
Mr. Perera, now, when you put things in that perspective, when you say our children won't have a future, or when you say we won't have jobs in the future, but doesn't Mode 4 work both ways in this particular case? Can't we go to Singapore and start working? Because I'm sure IT professionals in Singapore and people of your caliber, person who is an engineer, then an IT personnel, will have an easy access to a job in Singapore.
Yeah, one thing is that if we are going to agreement with a country like Singapore, we do not say that it's bad, right? But what we are saying is the way that we have agreed is bad. So that's why we were not this much forceful and we were not acting this much against before signing the FTA, because we haven't seen the things in there. Until that, what we see was that the way that they are working is wrong, and they are not collaborating with the professionals, and they are not responding to us, and they are doing everything in a hidden manner. And we knew that there are some allegations there. So that's why we were directly saying that, okay, stop this and have a national policy and have a regulatory framework. So that's why we were asking in that manner. But now we can see the agreement, and that they have opened this to everyone actually, because if you take consider the national in the agreement, the term, the national, yes. So it defines that any PR holder in Singapore as a national. And you can apply for PR there if you are an entrepreneur or an investor. Any other nationality in the world can apply and get the PR. So that means it's an open door for anyone, because you can just go to Singapore and say that, okay, I have this much of investment and I need PR from you. Then he will be a PR holder and he can come to Sri Lanka. So we have opened the door directly for any other country by signing this.
But isn't that the case anyway, Mr. Perera? Now, if you say someone wants to come and invest here directly, let's say a person from a different nationality other than China, India or Singapore, can't they come and directly invest here? And isn't that the same thing?
They can invest here, but they are not treated under bilateral agreement, because bilateral agreements doesn't belong to any jurisdictional area. That means you can't confront those agreements under our law, it's not easy. But we have seen situations. So, because if we have filed some FRs against 7 FRs actually, as I can remember. So against this Singapore FTA, and we have seen that there are similar things going around European Union and other places with these bad agreements. So it is possible to challenge that, but I'm not saying that it is not possible, but it is out of the boundaries of a country. So, but if we allow to come someone from another country and invest here, then it's not like that, because it is under our jurisdiction, yes, under our law. But still we have a lot of openings for them. For example, in 1988, we are a founder member of multilateral investment guarantee. So it's under World Bank. So there are other guarantees in here that provide that even if there is a political risk or political instability, even in such situation, there are guarantees for those investors. So we have laws and treaties to defend it. But this one is a bit too much.
Mr. Perera, now you're the Secretary of the Professionals National Front. The IT professionals are having an issue with this. The GMO is having an issue with this. Several other movements are having an issue with the particular free trade agreement that we're talking about. Now, if you take a look at Singapore as a country, now when EDCA came up, the main argument was from these professionals when we spoke to them. I think you were also a part of the group that we spoke to. The common understanding was that the free trade agreement with India was bad because India as a country will dump their employment, their unemployment rate is high, and things like that. But if you take that same logic and apply it to Singapore, Singapore is a better country to go into an FTA.
Yes.
And then what is the problem?
That's the thing, that without seeing the FTA, we can say that having an agreement with India is wrong, and it's not going to work, and it's bad for the country. And similar with agreement with China. So, but with Singapore, if we are not foolish as this, we can go for a good agreement. But we have opened all the doors to the world through this. That is the issue. That it's Sri Lanka is a small country, so we can't play with the things, and it's really hard. If we are a big country, then we might survive. But having this kind of agreement is not good, because as I said, that it is an opening for investors, because they can take the PR, and it is an opening for any other worker. So it's like that we have signed EDCA in a different manner.
Mr. Perera, interesting point there, but what I'm trying to get clear or get a proper understanding is, when we say that the corporate presence is there, if I, being a Sri Lankan national, after this FTA is being ratified and after the Supreme Court cases are being heard and everything is fine, if the FTA goes through, if a Sri Lankan national wants to set up a company in Singapore and take in nationals from Sri Lanka or any other country who are working for me to Singapore, is that possible or not?
We can establish a company in Singapore. So it is there even without this FTA. So you can ask for PR, and if you have the sufficient investment, and you can go there and start your business there. But if we are going to take our professionals and the other employees, then there is a set of rules and regulations, and they are very well defined in Singapore, but we don't have. So that, and we can't include them after signing the FTA as well. That is the WTO regulation. That you can't bring up new laws. It
has to exist before we sign the particular agreement.
Particular agreement.
So what you're saying is, let's say I consider myself to be a lawyer. Then I will have to go to Singapore and sit for those particular exams, go through their criteria to prove that my the education as a lawyer has been received, and therefore enter the system if there is a vacancy in Singapore, is what you're saying. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, if a person from Singapore comes here and says that he's a lawyer, or says that he's from any other professional, the Sri Lankan government will accept it as it is, because there is no system, is what you're trying to say.
no definition for any
and that is not mentioned in the FTA as well.
No.
That is not mentioned. So, and we cannot include it now.
No.
So, isn't it a bit too late to be talking about this thing?
No, because one thing is that we haven't seen the FTA. Then there is no meaning of saying that it's too late.
Right.
Now only that we can see this.
Yeah.
So what we can do is, we are going to the courts and try to confront this.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that maybe you notice this in our constitution, Sri Lankan constitution, number 157, it clearly says that something like this: international treaties and agreements where Parliament by resolution passed by not less than 2/3 of the whole number of members voting in its favor, approving as being essential for the development of the national economy, and any treaty or agreement between the government of Sri Lanka and the government of any foreign state for the promotion and protection of the investments in Sri Lanka. So this is about promotion and protection of the investments in Sri Lanka. So this clearly says that you need a 2/3 of the parliament to bring such law in here. And it also, from the other hand, it confirms that if something like that is there, then any other law can't confront that one. So you can't write any other law to change this.
Yeah.
So there's something like that. So this means that, in a way, this means that it guarantees the investors will get their benefits without any risk. But on the other hand, that if we are going to promote and protect our instead of our investments, something from the foreign, that means that we have to have this 2/3 of
2/3 majority
from the parliament. Yeah. So this is there, and we will try to get the confirmation on this from the Supreme Court. The thing is that it's not like goods. For goods, that it's about tariffs, and it's not about the protecting some others' investment. But in services, if you are going for mode 3, that means we have a commercial presence here. That means they can be in any business or any professional establishment, a branch, a company, anything can establish here.
Mr. Perera, we are getting a question from a viewer here. Now, he is saying the SLS, Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, doesn't preclude investors from local laws of either country. But what he's trying to say is they are bound by the laws of both countries. It is a tax exemption on tariffs that are government regulated on a bilateral basis. How strong is this statement? How true is this statement?
If you go for the goods, it's about the tariffs.
Yes.
But now we are talking about the services
sector. Right.
So it says that it's open up to the commercial presence in Sri Lanka or in Singapore. And it says that this is under GATS. So we have the national treatment there. So then there is a conflict whether we have to give the chance to the national treatment or to the
but so this
portion in this country.
When you say national, which has been mentioned, now I know that that there is no finalized copy of the FTA still available. There is a 1038 page that the professional movement has compiled together, taking all the portions of the available FTA to be easy to be taken to court, so that the court can refer to it. But when you take a look at this 1038 page document, there is a mention about what Singapore defines as a national and what Sri Lanka defines as a national.
Yes.
Clearly, Singapore says a national is any Singaporean citizen and a PR holder. But Sri Lanka only mentions Sri Lankan citizens.
Yes.
What does that mean? What is the meaning there? What is so difficult about understanding this? Because every time I talk to someone about the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, everyone brings this word national up. But when you say a PR holder and when you say a Sri Lankan citizen, what's the big deal?
citizens are under the constitution and they have the right of vote, and the PR that any other foreigner can apply. And in Singapore, it's I am not going to say it's easy, but it's in a way that it's little bit liberalized, as Singapore is a liberalized country, and getting the PR is also in a way is liberalized. So if you have the investment, or if you are an entrepreneur, you can get the PR, not only for them but students and everyone. There is a chance to get the PR from Singapore. So the thing is, again, that we should not restrict to this point as well, because that's what I am saying, that okay, an investor can come through Singapore and invest here because of that, because he's a PR holder. If he get the PR and come here, but if you consider the inflow of workers, professionals and laborers and everyone, then it's not about the this close. Then it's about the other one, that commercial presence. Right. So now they have the commercial presence under Mode 3, and they can bring anyone here through that.
Even Indian nationals, if you take that.
Mode 4 means that someone from other country, or Indian, or even a Singaporean, even if he is a Singaporean citizen, he can't come here and ask for a job, apply for a job as a natural person. But he can move as a natural person to work under company, under the corporate.
So company set up by Singapore. But the question here is, can an Indian national who is not a PR holder of Singapore come here through a corporate, through the fact that a company of a Singaporean national is here in our country? Can an Indian come through that loophole? Is it a loophole basically?
It's a, in our view, it's a loophole, because our government should have a look at that one. So it's a big, it's not a small hole. What I'm saying, it's a big opening, because it's really easy to get the PR as an investor and come here and bring anyone here, and then he can start with this manpower company or something. Then he can provide the employees to other companies as well. And if this starts in here, then let's say that one construction company, Singaporean company, comes here and brings Bangladesians and Indians and everyone here and start working. And for sure the other construction companies in here will have to ask to open the gates for everyone to come here, because otherwise they can't compete with the Singaporean company. So we need to think about that one as well, because if you open for the Mode 3 with this level, then naturally we will force to bring everyone here and start working with the same way.
Mr. Perera, now once again I'm going to ask you this question. Now we know that there is a medical council here. We know that the lawyers also have, to a certain degree, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and all the other bodies that monitor. So what areas or what professions does this affect, this Mode 3, the corporate presence, and all of these FTAs that we're talking about? What areas does it really affect?
All professions are open actually, for a certain extent. Even though the medical sector is said that it is not there, in some places it is open, and so you can go through the document and see that but other than that, everyone is open. Even lawyers are not safe from this agreement. The thing is that it says that you need to know you should have this mother tongue or something. There's something like that. I can't remember the exact clause on that, but there's a rule saying that
you should be aware of the mother tongue of Sri Lanka.
Yeah, then it could be could be Sinhala or English. Tamil. So then maybe a Tamil can come here and do his job from other country.
If the person knows the language, he won't have a restriction. But Mr. Perera, finally, now I want to take you through this as well. When you say that there are issues like this, when every time there's an FTA in Sri Lanka, there is someone who is going to raise an issue. isn't it the problem where the government does not have a proper trading policy, a policy to carry out these types of FTAs? Isn't that the problem here?
No, actually it's a problem. Not having a policy, not having the regulatory framework at first, and going through these agreements. So but the biggest issue is that government is not honest, and they are playing. For example, that when we say that Singapore agreement is open for PR holders, Mr. Malik Samaravikrama coming and says that only nationals of Singapore can come here. Technically it's true, but agreement clearly states that Singapore nationals means PR holders plus citizens. But for Sri Lanka it says citizens. So this is only one example, but we have seen a lot of issues and allegations and lot of things, and even with the negotiation team and everyone, they are playing a different game as we feel. So that's why time to time we ask President as well of this country to remove Malik Samaravikrama as the ministry from the ministry, and do some changes there and restart these things.
But that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. So we feel that this cabinet reshuffles is about only keeping their power and not about bringing this country up.
Mr. Perera, finally, I want to ask you, since we are on this topic, this was being discussed from 2003, or I think a bit before that as well, the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. For 15 years, you all have been talking about this, and the professional movements have been talking about this. Why didn't it occur to you all back then, or why didn't it occur to anyone back then, that there were flaws like this in the FTA, and why is it an issue now after it has been signed?
You're asking about the Singapore FTA.
Yeah.
The thing is that without seeing the FTA, that you can't oppose this kind of FTA, because Singapore is a good country and a small country. So if it is somewhat developed and if it is small, so it should be possible for us to go for a good agreement technically. With India or China, we can't do that. Clearly we can't do that. So we can oppose at any point without seeing the agreement, that don't go to an agreement with China or India. But we can't do that, because as professionals we are not acting like that. We are not politicians. So we need to see the things before confront anything. So we can't just think and confront. But now we feel that this government is acting in a different manner. Maybe we have to confront everything.
Thank you, Mr. Perera, for being here with us this morning on Newsline and talking to us about specific key points of the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. We hope to bring to the attention of our viewers the problems that these professional bodies are talking about when it comes to the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. We are going to keep you updated throughout the week about this. Mr. Perera is the Secretary of the Professionals National Front. He has been talking about this for a long time. Him and a lot of others, including the GMOA, have been very vocal about the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. So thank you once again, Mr. Perera, for being here on very short notice to come and talk to us about the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement.
Thank you, Chathuranga.
That's all we have from Newsline this morning. We'll join you tomorrow as well with an interesting guest to talk about this and a lot more. Thank you very much.